Hi everyone. In this video we're going to go over the Illustrator basics with a very simple project showing how to do a variety of very fundamental tools and processes directly in Adobe Illustrator. So we're going to start from scratch, absolute basics of getting Adobe Illustrator running, creating a new project, and doing a bunch of transformations and creating a letter of your choice into this grid, this 3x6 grid. All right, so I have this open right now, but we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna start from scratch. There's different ways to open Adobe Illustrator. You probably have a Creative Cloud icon on your computer, and if you see Illustrator in here, you can just press open and it will open it without. Let me close out this project. I'm going to press save, and you'll probably get a screen that looks something like this. You can also go to your applications folder, and you can see Adobe Illustrator 2025 in there. You can double click on that as well. So once it loads and you have this home screen, you can go to press new file. And in this project, we're going to make it a tabloid size. Tabloid size paper is 11 by 17 inches. I use the word paper, we're not actually printing this. So it's just 11 by 17 inch, in this case, artboard. So in this menu here, you have an option to name your project. So we're going to start by, I'm just going to title it Basic Tool Grid. And then width 11 by 17. This is where you have the option to change the units. So you can do pixels, points, inches, millimeters, anything like that. We're gonna keep it with inches. And we only need one artboard right now. And we'll get into some of this later, but we're gonna use RGB color, that is for screens. CMYK color is for printing an actual physical piece of paper. Also for the resolution, we're going to keep it as screen, which is 72 points per inch or pixels per inch. And then I'm going to press create. So that's how you get started creating a project from scratch. Now I'm going to so I can compare it to the example you saw earlier, I'm going to go back and open up this file, and you can actually have two artboards side by side. Again, this white rectangle is my artboard, and so I'm going to go ahead and just make a new one, and so we can see them side by side here. All right, so this grid of letters, my name is Ryan, so I use the letter R. There's different tools that are creating these effects, and again, these are just some of the basic tools that you need to start learning in Illustrator. So we're going to recreate this and just go down the line very simply. Some of this may look a little advanced, but I promise it's not. This can all be done in probably 30 minutes or an hour for you. For me, I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. Okay, so the first one is just the letter R itself using the type tool. So the keyboard shortcut is T, but it also looks like the letter T over here on the left. It's the type tool. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to click and drag an open rectangle, and I'm just going to type in capital R. Actually, instead of doing another R, just to mix it up, I'm going to do an ampersand this time. So I'm going to do an ampersand. Now you notice it's very small. One other thing I need to back up. Your screen may look a little different than what you see on mine right now, because Illustrator usually defaults to going to the Essentials workspace. So if you notice on the top right, all the way to the top right, I can switch the workspace. So I click on that. I'm using, and for these demos, I'm going to be using Essentials Classic. And you'll see there's different workspaces that are better for different types of projects like painting or typography, things like that. But I'm going to use Essentials Classic. I'd recommend you using that as well so that your screen looks like mine. With that, I can very easily change the size of this ampersand. So right now I see at the top here, and I'm clicking on my selection tool, so I'm no longer in the type tool. The selection tool is kind of like home base. It's what you can always go to if things get wrong, start looking strange. Just click on your selection tool, you can start moving things around. All right, so when I click on this box with the ampersand that I just made, I see at the top here, I see the typeface that I use. It's called Myriad Pro. I'm going to change this, and I'm just going to go ahead and make it Biosans. I'm going to make it, let's say, extra bold, and then this is the point size. I can increase this until it gets as big as I want it to, as big as I want it to be. Maybe I won't do extra bold. Maybe I'll just do just bold. Okay. Also, you'll notice that it just defaults to being solid black. And then just like that, first character is done. Character is another word for a specific letter. In this case, this is not a letter. An ampersand is a symbol, but this mark is called a character. So the first one's done. Next, we're going to move over here, and this R was made with the line segment tool. So I can actually click and move around these line segments if I want to. I'm going to do the same thing here to create the ampersand. So on my tool palette over here on the left side, there is the line segment tool, keyboard shortcut \. I can click on that, and then I'm going to click once and drag, and wherever I go and when I let go, it creates a line. So I can just click and drag and let go, and it makes a bunch of different lines like that. The keyboard shortcut to undo something is Command Z. So I know I'm going pretty quick on this, but Command Z is how I can get rid of those lines that I just made. All right, so now I'm gonna use lines to actually make the ampersand shape. So maybe I'll start with a line like this, and then I might have to move it away a bit. We'll just kind of, I can't go straight side by side, so we'll just kind of give it some room, and I can always move these around later. Okay, so we have a basic shape like that, but I need to combine them so that they form one solid ampersand. So I'm going to go back to my direct selection tool. This is just like your cursor arrow. I'm going to click on that, and now I can move these around and make adjustments if necessary. And let's see how it looks. And you know, I'm actually okay if it does some strange overlapping. It might actually be cool. Now, one thing you can do is I can click on this line, on any of these lines, and if I'm zoomed in enough, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm doing that with my trackpad here, but there is a magnify tool as well, or you can do keyboard shortcut Command plus or Control plus if you're on Windows. I'm using a Mac, that's why I'm saying Command instead of Control. So if I select this line, I can click just on this white box on the end and extend it. And I might do that here as well, so we get this kind of overlap effect with all these lines. Now this might get a little abstract, but that's fine. You'll notice these are a lot of different ways to treat the character. All right, so we got something like an ampersand there. Next up, let's do the rectangle tool. That's what this R here was made from. So under the type tool, and yours might look a little different on your screen, there is a rectangle tool, keyboard shortcut M. I click on that, and you'll notice if I go ahead and make a rectangle, it's not a solid rectangle yet. For this one, I want to make sure it's solid. So I actually have to change between a solid and a fill. So a shape that I've just made can be either made with a stroke or a filled shape. Right now, this one is just a stroke. That's why we see it's hollow on the inside and looks like the rectangle frame. Okay, with that selected, all I have to do is click on this little bent arrow here, and it'll toggle between the filled rectangle or the stroked rectangle. Okay, so I'm gonna use a fill. If I wanted to do that from the beginning, I have to make sure the fill is selected with the solid black, and the stroke has this red line through it, means there's no stroke. So this is just a solid fill. All right, so again, let's make an ampersand with the rectangle tool. So again, I'll make something, and these will only make rectangles that are at right angles. So I'm gonna have to rotate this later. We'll show you how to do that. So maybe we'll just get something close like this. And it'll end up probably looking similar to the line segment tool. We'll just go through that. And now I need to rotate it. So I'm gonna go back to my direct selection tool, make sure none of it's selected, and then I can click and drag a selection box. You see, with my direct selection tool being used currently, I can click outside that area, click and drag, and you see it makes this kind of dotted rectangle. That is, I'm holding down as I click. So I'm clicking and holding down, dragging it out, so I can make a selection area that I'm using to cover all of these rectangle shapes I just made. Once I do that, I can let go, and you'll notice they've all been selected. They all have these blue bounding box lines. When I do that, I can then move my cursor over to one of these corners, and you see how my cursor changes when I go to one of the corners and becomes this bent arrow. That means I can now rotate everything that has been selected. So I'm going to go over here and rotate it like that. And now we have something closer to ampersand here. It's not exactly the same, but it's okay to get a little abstract with this. Okay. Next up, we're going to use the brush tool. So this is a tool that looks like, the icon looks like a paintbrush. I'm going to click on that, and then this one's pretty easy. I can literally just click and draw my shape. Now, this is not, that doesn't look very good, doesn't look interesting. It looks like a little scribble, but we're not getting into the details on how to use a paintbrush and different types of brushes and all that. We're just keeping things simple. So all you have to do is just that. You just get the paintbrush tool and you draw just like you would have a pen on paper, and I have an ampersand. Okay, next up, we're going to make an outlined character, in this case, outlined ampersand. So I'm going to start doing something that I'll be doing multiple times throughout this. This is an important part. So this original ampersand that I had here, that's just editable text. When I click on it, you see I have this whole box. I can actually double click in here and change it. So I'm highlighting it. I can type other stuff as well. But in this case, I don't want to have other stuff. I want to have the ampersand. So that is an editable text box. I want to copy this ampersand. There's a couple different ways of doing that. You can copy and paste. You select it, edit, copy, and then edit, paste. I recommend using the keyboard shortcuts Command-C and Command-V, or Control-C, Control-V. The other option is that when it's selected, and you have your direct selection tool, if you hold down the Option key, again on Mac, as I click on the Option key and hold it down, you'll see my cursor changes. I can actually click and drag and it will duplicate that object. But again, the other way to copy and paste, I selected it, Command C, and then now press Command V, and just move it over here. Now to outline it, all we have to do is again change from fill to stroke. So again, I'm coming down here where I see this one square is the fill, the other is a stroke. Right now, the fill is solid black and there's no stroke. But if I swap these, now there's a stroke but no fill. Right now the stroke is very thin, it's very thin lines. I want to make it bolder. So for this, when I have it selected, right now the stroke at the top here, it's 1 point. But if I go up 2 points, 3 points, 4, 5, you'll see it's getting thicker. So I might do something like, we'll just do 3. Okay. Next up, we're going to use the ellipse tool. So the ellipse tool is just like the rectangle tool, except it makes ellipses instead of rectangles. And you won't see it, you probably won't see it right away on your tool palette here, but it is on the same menu section as the rectangle. So all of these tools, you'll notice this little tiny white triangle at the bottom right. That means there's other tools within that section. So if I click and hold down on the rectangle tool, this other menu pops up, and I'm still holding down until I can select the ellipse tool. So again, it works the same way. I'm going to make it similar to the rectangle, although I did not check. It doesn't have a fill, it just has a stroke, so I don't like that. I'm going to select it and press delete to remove it. And I'm going to swap fill and stroke again. So I can go to the ellipse, and let's say we'll do one here. Again, we'll just do a bunch of these. And then I can go to my direct selection tool, move it around a little bit, select all of them, and rotate. Okay. Next up, we have a gradient. So a similar process like how I copied and pasted the ampersand here that was directly from the text. I'm going to do that again, copy and paste, move it here, but this time, instead of leaving it as an editable text box, I'm going to, I know this gets a little confusing, but I'm going to do what's called create outlines. So it's going to turn this from editable text into a shape. So if I right click or control click on Mac, I get a menu here that says create outlines. I click on that, and you don't see anything different right now. We'll get into this later, but trust me, right now this is viewed as a shape with fill and strokes and paths, and this is editable text. The reason we do this is because now I can very easily add a gradient. So up here, I've selected this outline ampersand, and you'll notice under my swatches here, there's a few here that look like gradients. So there's an orange-yellow gradient here. I'm going to click on that, and now it has made a gradient in my ampersand. Right now it's a linear gradient. It's just going from left to right, yellow to orange. You'll notice on the example I have here, I use what's called a free-form gradient, where I can have some other interesting things going on. So let's take a look at that real quick. Now this is an example where you might need to go up to your window and look for a specific menu. In this case, we want the gradient menu. So it's not checked, that's why we don't see it. So I'm going to click on gradients. And there's a lot of menu options here, things you can mess around with, but you see 3 types of gradients: linear, which is what we have now, radial, and freeform. So I still have this selected. I'm going to click on freeform. And you'll notice, I'll go ahead and zoom in, you'll notice that it has automatically added a bunch of these circles. I can actually move them around. I can click and move them around, and it makes these gradients from yellow and black and pink, green, etc. If I double click on one of those, I can change the color. Let's say I make this one darker, or make this black, double click on it, and I can even just click directly in here, maybe do a light blue, and I can move them around, adjust these settings, and it will change how they blend together. If you don't want one, you can just click and drag it out and it goes away. So now I'm left with this kind of deep red, white, green, and blue. All right, so that's a gradient. Next up, we have our outlined ampersand. We want to flip it. So I'm gonna copy and paste this, put it here, but we want to learn how to transform. And I'm going to go ahead and outline this again. So right now it's a shape, it's not editable text, it's a shape. So I have that selected. I'm going to go up to Object, Transform, Reflect. And you see, if I have Preview selected, it shows a preview of what it looks like flipped around. Press OK, done. All right, the next piece we're going to work on is the Rotate tool. Okay, so again, I'm going to copy and paste this ampersand here, and I'm going to go ahead and create the outlines, right click or control click, and come over here to the Rotate tool. It kind of looks like this little arrow that's spinning around. It's also keyboard shortcut R. Click on that, and you have to have your object selected first, and then you're going to option click at any place around, and it will, when you option click, it will select where the rotation axis is located. Right now it defaults to, if you see this little these crosshairs right in the center here, that means if I click right now, see it's rotating around that axis. But if I want to change it, say I option click out here, and it brings up a menu. So when I option click with the Rotate tool and I have the ampersand selected, it brings up this menu. And this is where I'm going to copy the rotation around a bunch of times. So you can control how much you rotate it. But let's start with, we'll start with doing it 13 copies of the ampersand. Now, to do that mathematically perfectly, all you have to do is type in 360 divided by 13. And divide by, that's the /. And Illustrator will do the math of how many times and what is the perfect degree that it will rotate around this central axis, so that you have 13 copies of the ampersand evenly spaced. Now I can do 360 divided by any number here. The more copies I want, the bigger the number it'll be. 360, of course, that's how many degrees are in a circle. So that's why you do 360 divided by a certain number. Actually, I'm going to take this down, and we'll just do 7. 360 divided by 7. Now, instead of pressing OK, I'm going to press copy. And you'll notice it rotated, it made a copy, a duplicate, and rotated it around. Now, I want to keep doing that. So there's 7 of them. So in order to do that, I have to duplicate that action. So again, this is where you have to use keyboard shortcuts. So I'm gonna, without pressing anything else, I've just pressed copy in that menu. Now I'm gonna do Command D, or on a Windows, Control D. I'm gonna press once, 2, 3, 4, until we go all the way around and have this shape. I'm gonna deselect it, zoom out, and in this case with ampersands, it looks kind of like a snowflake. The one here with the R actually looked more like a flower or something. Okay, so that's the rotate tool. Sometimes it's a little finicky, especially if you don't do that exact order the exact right way. It might get a little funky. All right, so I'm gonna select this and scale it down. Next up, we're going to do an outline stroke that is a dashed line. So I'm gonna actually copy and paste this again. It's a little smaller. Actually, no, I'm gonna copy and paste the original. And I'm going to create outlines. So control click on it, press create outlines. And then I'm going to do the swap, fill and stroke. So we get something like this, but now we want to make an adjustment to the stroke. We want to change it to dashed lines. So I'm gonna select this object. I'm gonna go to Window, and I'm gonna go down to Stroke. And then I have a bunch of menu options here. All I have to do is click on the check this box beside dashed line, and there's dashes there. Now I can adjust the length of the dash and the length of the gap as well, but I'm not worried about that right now. So that's how I get the dashed line. Okay, next up, I'm going to duplicate this, turn it back to a filled shape. Next up, we're going to do 3D. So there are some 3D features built into Adobe Illustrator. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to go to Effect, 3D and Materials, and I'll just do Extrude and Bevel. Actually, I'm going to change the color so you can see it a little better. So I'll do yellow. And it's automatically, just like that, I can deselect it and automatically have that ampersand. It looks 3-dimensional, but I can change the depth. I'll just move this over a bit. Some of these menu options, how 3D it is, I can kind of taper it, I can twist it, but that's all you have to do. So I know that might look complicated, but you just go to the 3D materials, and it won't look as good. You won't be able to see the shadows if it's solid black, so that's why I changed the color there. Okay, next up here, this one is going to be using blend mode. So you see I have multiple R's, and they're kind of blending and overlapping. I'm going to do that here. Again, I'm going to create outlines. I'll go ahead and do a few different colors. And I'm going to duplicate this. We'll do red. We'll do primary colors, do a blue here. And I'm just going to overlap them so the colors can start blending. So I'm going to select all of them. I'm going to go to transparency. So I'm under Window and then down to transparency. And right now there's a menu option that says normal, but I'm going to select one of these blend modes. You might want to start with something like overlay. That didn't work too great, so let's just keep looking for, maybe we'll do like difference. There you go. Now it's really starting to blend. So let me zoom in, and you can see where they overlap. They're really blending together and making new colors. So different types of these blend mode options will have different effects. So it depends on the lightness and darkness and the color saturation, things like that. In this case, using the difference blend mode, we see a lot of good overlap for these letters. Okay, next up, we're going to start looking at other effects. So again, I'm going to create outlines. Next one is blur. So I have the ampersand selected. I'm going to go to Effect, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I have a menu option to change how blurry it is. I can go extremely blurry or just slightly blurry. Let's just kind of go in the middle and press OK. And now I have a blurred ampersand. Moving on. This one we want to do a transformation. We're going to do roughen and distort. So I have it selected. You go to Effect. To the menu says Distort and Transform. I'm going to click on Roughen. And I'm going to change this to Smooth. Make the detail, the scale a little bit less, just so it looks a little rough. We don't want it to be too crazy. Press OK. And that has distorted the ampersand. Okay. All right, so the next one we have here was made with a mesh warp. So let's make a new one here, create outlines. I have it selected. I'm going to go to Object and then Envelope Distort and Make with Mesh. So it brings up a little grid here. You can change how big the grid is. Press OK. I'm going to zoom in, and then with the direct selection tool, it will only allow you to really mess with the proportions. We don't want that. This is where we have to start using the direct selection tool. I'm just realizing I might have accidentally called the other one a direct selection tool. The normal one is a selection tool. This one is direct selection tool. The selection tool has the dark fill, and the direct selection tool has the light fill. So with that, I can click on any of these points on this grid and start moving them around. And this is how we can start warping this shape. Now, some of them as well, you'll see these handlebars, they can actually be twisted in different ways to warp it all around. Okay? So that is with the mesh warp. All right, the next one we want to do is actually using the Pathfinder tool. So I'm going to copy this down, right click, create outlines, make sure it's selected. If you don't see your Pathfinder window, go to Window and then click on Pathfinder. It'll look like this. And then with the ampersand selected, let's just start by doing the first one. It's called Unite. Actually, you might have to do first merge and then unite in this case. Depending on which letter it is, it might work differently. But first off, I'm clicking on merge, this one here, and then unite. So it's a way of treating the shape differently. So instead of having those paths, and we'll talk more about paths in a different video, instead of having those paths that define those open spaces, it's basically flattening. So you just have the outline, and when that is filled in, it looks completely solid. All right, next one. We're going to use the blend tool. So I'm going to create the outlines, and then I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to move it over, and I'm going to change the two colors And I'm going to size this one down just so you can really see the difference. And we have the first one selected, and then the blend tool is over here on the left. It looks like you see a circle and these squares. I'm going to click on that. And I just click on the original and then click on the second object, and it automatically blends those two together. It ends up looking like this, just like with the R. All right, and finally, we're going to do an outer glow. So again, I'm going to bring the last ampersand down, right click, create outlines, select it. I'm going to go up to Effect, and then Stylize, and then Outer Glow. And I can change the color of the glow. So we'll do like this magenta here. And you can change how dark it is, how blurry it is. We'll just keep it kind of like this. Press OK. And right now it has the outer glow, but you'll see like this one, it looks cooler when the actual shape is white, like the background. So I have it selected. I'm going to change the fill to white. So now it looks like this kind of glowing, almost like a spray paint stencil or something. All right, and that is everything. That is a grid, 18 different ways to treat something simple like this typographic character, the ampersand symbol. Everything from type tool, blending, rotation, gradients, all of it. So this is a great start to get familiar with these very basic tools. I understand that I'm doing this quickly because I know how to do these things. It may take a little more time if it's not intuitive for you, but this is the absolute basics. So I got through that in less than an hour. I don't imagine it will take much longer for you, especially if you just follow my instructions. Also, send me a message if things are not working out, and I'm happy to help troubleshoot with anybody watching. Okay, the last thing, we want to make sure this work is saved. Okay, so if I go up to Save, now I already had this saved, so it doesn't bring up the menu option, but if I did, let's say, save a copy, I can choose where to save this on my computer, and it will save an Adobe Illustrator file. You can also save your files to the Adobe Cloud. Just make sure, I would recommend having them backed up in multiple places because you don't want your work to get lost. You don't want to have to go through and do this stuff all over again. The other thing is exporting your final grid. Now, for exporting JPEG and PDF, it's two different processes. In this case, I'm going to go to File. For the PDF, go to File, Save a Copy, and where it says Format, just change it to PDF. And you can change the name of it here if you want. And then you press Save, and it will save the PDF. I'll actually do it here, press Save. You can just have it as the Illustrator default. Save PDF, it might bring it up automatically in Adobe Acrobat. It has both of my pages here. You also can save it as a JPEG. So just as a flat image. So I'm going to go to File, Export, Export As, and then Format, I'm going to change it to JPEG. And press Export. You can keep color mode at RGB, quality all the way up, resolution screen, press OK. And if I go there, now this one, because I had two, it saved it side by side, but that's fine. If you only have one, yours will be by itself. Now, it did crop it. I would recommend actually one setting I did not do. It would be better actually. So I'm gonna go back to export as. I'm gonna turn on use artboards. I should have done that the first time. It's better to use artboards, then press export. We replace it. And now I have both of my artboards full size. All right, that's everything you need in for this project as one way to get started getting familiar with Adobe Illustrator. Let me know if you have any questions.